This is Between the Lines. Today, we dissect the road less travelled.
Okay. Hello, how are you? We continue with the road less traveled and chapter 30, which is called Love and Psychotherapy. And in this chapter, Dr. starts talking about himself a little bit, how when he first decided to start studying psychotherapy, to becoming a psychiatrist, he didn't actually knew exactly what he wanted to do. He just wanted to help people. That was his motive or his premise. And after some time, he decided, okay, I should go into medicine because that's where you are supposed to help people at the time. And he realized, okay, I'm not that much good and I don't really like the part of the body thing, but I would like to try helping people through their minds and understanding the quirks of the mind, he says. And because if you recall, we talked about him in the very first chapters of this book, when he said he considered himself a mechanical idiot. So he thought that he would have to learn a lot of things to treat the body. And so he decided to go into psychotherapy and then becoming a psychiatrist because he thought that it would be more appropriate for him. And at first, he didn't know anything about therapy, and he thought that he would be told some magical words, some magical behaviors, and things to do with his patients in order for them to like unlock or unblock something in their minds. And of course, he found out after that he didn't know he would have to learn in the process and become himself a better person. He didn't know that it would involve the whole process with his patients and also with himself, self-growth and also growing, improvement, and this way of the spiritual growth, as he calls it. And in this learning, he found out that several things he had been told at university or when he was studying weren't really that exactly, or something that hadn't been suggested by his professors. He found out that were really important in the real treatment and the real practice. So when he started treating others, at first it was in the first years of his profession, he started his practice with people who were really more benefit, as he calls, from the pills and other treatments than from his words and interactions. And after that, he started treating, like we could say now, normal people, neurotics, people that went to his office just as a normal therapist in order to talk to them and have sessions and help them improve. And that is when he realized, for example, with a case he mentions here of a patient called Marcia. Actually, that's a fake name, but he calls it Marcia. And she, after 1 year of treatment, she had been not only not improving, but the doctors said that he actually saw her like getting worse in some ways. She started to have like what she called bad behavior. And so the doctor was really frustrated and didn't know how to help Marcia at the time. And he had used all the tricks and things he was supposed to, until one day Marcia came to a session and said, "Doctor, do you think I'm a bit of a shit?" She asked her. And he said, at first, didn't know how to reply to that question because he had to be totally honest with her patient and with his patient. And At the same time, he was confronted with a real life situation with the patient. And he thought, well, she's entitled to really have an honest answer from me because we have been together in this process for 1 year and seeing her 3 times a week. So he thought what would be the best answer, and he said, well, I will be honest. I will tell you that I know we are struggling in this process. We are getting almost nowhere here. I don't want to give up, but at the same time, I feel like we are not doing real progress and I don't know what else to do. And he said, but I admire you because you, after time, you keep coming. You are constant. You are committed to growing. And I really admire that from you. And that seemed to, even though it was ill advice from all the professors, being totally honest with a patient or with a client, it really showed that this person, Marcia, she started improving a lot in the following sessions. It was like all that they had been trying to fix during this whole year, she could accomplish more rapidly now after this sincere conversation. And so the doctor then learned a valuable lesson from this interaction, that not only he had to work on these magical words or postures and gestures and ways of treating his patients in certain way, but also he could be honest sometimes with them, and that it would be necessary at certain moments of the treatment. Of course, not always. Then he had, after like 10 years or so, this patient, Marcia, was really great, and this was like an inflection point in the relationship with her, and then everything went out well and better. And Marcia could improve and leave therapy finally. And one decade later, he had another case of another patient he calls Helen, and he was having also struggle with her. She didn't. He could see that she was lying many times to him, or she was saying things that weren't really good, because after some time you start to understand your patient. And he also realized she didn't trust her. She didn't trust him, and sometimes she even said, you don't really care about me, you only care about the money I bring to you. And it was really frustrating for the doctor. He said he spent several nights thinking what was really her problem. He couldn't understand, but it was clear that she didn't trust him. That was for sure. So one day the patient asked him, Helen said, you know, doctor, it's really frustrating because I know you don't care about me, you're uninterested, you only care about my money. And it's really frustrating to talk to you, to try to communicate. And he said, yes, it's been also frustrating for me because I have also been trying to understand what is the problem between the two of us, and there's always seemed to be a struggle, and I don't really get you, and something happens, I don't want to give up again, but I really don't know what else to do because it's really, really frustrating. And then she answered, oh, that means you really care about me, because otherwise you wouldn't be frustrated. And the doctor was kind of confused because he didn't expect her to really realize that that was the situation. And he said, yeah, that's really obvious, right? That's what's happening here. And so she started opening up. And again, the whole process of the treatment was some kind of accelerated, and Helen could improve from that situation, and the both of them could get to a better relationship. So from this, the doctor, from these two experiences he mentions, and from more others that he didn't mention here, he found out that, again, genuine love, or real love towards his patients, was actually helping him help them too. Because giving, for example, when they needed honest answers, positive feelings that he had, like in the first case, Marcia, he did really admire Marcia for coming back session after session. Even they didn't know how to go on with the situation. Those were true things that he felt about his patient, and he was able to express them honestly and openly, and that made a great progress. The same case was with Helen. So he did find out that this real love, although sometimes is mixed up in the Western society, he mentions here, every literature you find, or at least remember this 50 years ago, I don't know now, I am no therapist. He said that at the time, Western literature on psychotherapy or medicine and everything was strictly scientific, and the concept of love was not mentioned at all. It was changed, for example, by warmth, empathy, but it never said the word love, because it tends to be confused or mixed up with romantic love, with genuine love or real love. And he found out that that was not accurate, because this expression of love is also through honesty. You are expressing your love, and you are without lying, of course, because he said his truth about the situation from his side honestly, and he felt that he had to do that, even though it was ill-advised or was not advised in by his professors or by his colleagues. And of course, this love that we mentioned is referred to as the love of a parent to a child. And the doctor says here that it's really important to have that in mind, because it's not the same of in the case of romantic love or sexual interaction. It's not the same, because he said, I don't think from my experience that having intercourse, for example, with his patients will really help them. On the contrary, he thought that that would be an impediment for them to grow, because it could generate dependency from his patients towards him. And if we really think about real love, it tends to take you to your next level, to foster real spiritual growth, as he calls it. And this also involves developing independence in the patients. And another thing is that I forgot what I was going to say, but I will check my notes here. Yes, about ego boundaries too. Yes, when we fall in love with our patients, or our patients fall in love with us, remember we talked about this in another chapter. I didn't take notes on which one, but yes, chapter 9, which I called Are You Too Busy for Your Own Truth? So go to chapter 9 in that case. When we talk about boundaries, if you fall in love with your patient, you are getting down all your ego boundaries, which are necessary in this kind of interaction with a patient. And the same goes for a parent to a child. You want your children to grow and to become better, and you don't want to have sex with them, right? And at least it's not the appropriate kind of situation. And he also mentions that love is not talked about because of this confusion about romantic love and also about real love. But at the same time, because Freud followers, the famous psychiatrist and psychotherapist Freud, their followers talk about transference as when you fall in love, or when you are in love, or when you express love to your patients, not necessarily falling in love, but when you express love to your patients, they say that you are doing some kind of transference. However, we talked about that also in chapter 9. The transference is actually from the perspective of the doctor, this kind of inappropriate behaviors, not exactly what Freudian people say. So that to take into mind. And another thing he learned from this, like a side thing that we could talk about, is so if this real love is expressed through psychotherapy, in this case, why can't you, as a psychologist, treat your family and your friends? And he says that if you have the tools and you have the capacity to love them, and you also choose to do so, you could. Maybe not in sessions, but you should take the opportunities as a doctor, as long as you have the capacity, again, that we mentioned before, and I'm going to mention briefly next. As long as you have the capacity to love more people, you can do so. You can take the opportunity, because in the opportunity you help them grow. If they are your friends, loved ones, and family, you could guide them with the tools you already have as a therapist, and especially with love, with real love. You can guide them and help them become better people. And the doctor also mentions that you don't have to be a therapist in order to love somebody and really truly put the effort into doing this, because psychotherapy, as love, as real love, also takes effort. And he mentions his own case. When he started his practice, at first he had only time or the capacity to love only his patients during his sessions. And after that, he realized, okay, I love my family, I love my wife, and I'm making her dependent on me instead of contributing to her growth, to her spiritual growth. So I will put also the effort in my family to do so, to help them. And in the process, becoming himself more, I was about to say enlightened, but I don't think that's the word, but to become to go a little farther in his way towards a spiritual growth. I think that's better. And so yes, sometimes he says he was asked about this in parties or reunions when different people, when they say, sometimes he said some people really wanted to know, others just asked, like an idle question to ask to a therapist, if he could separate his world from being a psychotherapist and being just a normal guy at home. And when they did it, when he realized that people really wanted to know, he said, no, if I have the tools and I can help somebody else, I have the capacity to love more people, I can do so. But of course, again, he doesn't necessarily advise that at first you do it with everyone else, because you have a limited capacity, as we have been talking in previous chapters. I think it was chapter 11 when we mentioned about this capacity for love, right? That we really cannot be loving everyone, or at least not at first, because we have to grow also in this way of loving. And lastly, from this chapter, what I took notes from was also another question that he generally receives from his patients mostly, saying, when should I quit therapy? And his answer was, when you are yourself a good therapist. So that is why I call this chapter Become a Good Therapist. And he mentions that it takes the responsibility of trying to be our best selves. And some people find that too difficult, so they quit before. Most of his patients, he says, quit before they really get to that point, because they find it that it's difficult, that it will take too much time from them, and that kind of stuff. So I think it's really nice to know that you can be yourself a good therapist by applying love. I mean, please take it within this context, because you should have I don't know, a study on therapy and practice corresponding to that studies and everything. But in some way, we can help others without just with our love, right? With that true, real love, and always according our capacities to love. And generally, we put our love into our nearest and dearest people, and not just anyone that's going around, right? That doesn't mean that we have to be bad people with everyone, but we can put our focus onto certain people. Anyways, I wanted to mention, because I really thought a lot about while reading this chapter, about a series that I've watched. Recently, I finished the second season of Shrinking, is the name of the series, TV series. I mean, Netflix or Amazon, I don't remember which one. It's called Shrinking again. It has Harrison Ford as one of the protagonists of the. They are therapists, two therapists. I don't remember the name of the other actor. Sorry. So there are two therapists, and the whole environment of them, and how they also as therapists and their patients have to go through several things in life, as we all do. And one of them, or one of the therapists, decides to go on a different path that remind me a lot here from the doctor. He decided to do something that you are not supposed to do as a psychotherapist, but sometimes he helps his patients, and sometimes he doesn't with this approach. So it's really interesting to see, and it's a comedy. So you can watch it, but it's a comedy, but it also has some deep topics sometimes that you can be benefit from if you want. Well, I just wanted to mention that, and I think that's all from now for the day, and see you next Sunday. Bye bye.
Stay tuned for Uluwa's next episode.